So if you got involved with a charity, I would absolutely say look at local not-for-profits. So, you know, Hospice of the Good Shepherd is one, it's very much local. Carry out some due diligence. You'd do it if you were putting a contract out. On average, I'd say a charity shouldn't be spending more than 20 pence in the pound on their fundraising. And you can find out from charity commissions the sorts of figures that are being spent on fundraising. And the rest of the money should be spent on direct charitable delivery. And if you get into the state where somebody's spending 40% on delivery or 50% on delivery and the rest is going on people like fundraisers, then actually you really need to question, do you want that money to go to that organisation? So, you know, be smart about where you're putting your money. If you're working really hard to raise it, you need to make sure it's being spent sensibly. Use existing umbrella organisations. BITC is a load of research, but also Skillshare, the David Briggs thing. There's also Council for Voluntary Services, Chester Voluntary Action. There's lots of organisations out there that act as umbrellas for charities, so it's well worth seeing who they're working with and who actually wants support, because you can maybe go in and do some pro bono, and it's something that organisation has already asked for. Be prepared to donate or fundraise. No matter what, charities need money, and they need money more than ever at the moment. And even if you're volunteering for a charity does actually cost the charity money, because they have to have somebody who liaises with you, who, if you're a regular volunteer, they have to have volunteer managers, and all those things do cost them money. So, you know, be realistic about it, that you will need to give them some money. Analyse the opportunities in your company. Could somebody come in and do some work experience with you? So the lady over there works for Kids to Work, and I used to work for the Prince's Trust. We were always looking for opportunities for young people to come in and gain work experience. Because if you can give somebody work experience, and if they've never had any work experience, they can put it on their CV and you can actually help them get a job. Just by giving somebody a week's work experience, you could help them get a job. Give them some help with their CV, interview them, and tell them what's wrong with their interview technique. And a lot of these kids have never had an interview in their lives, and they sit there like chewing gum, and you know, all those things you hate at interviews, and you can give them that feedback and tell them what they're doing wrong. One of the things we used to make the kids do is do some customer, you know, go and do some secret shoppers, and be a marketeer and find out actually what you really dislike about people doing when you're a customer. And they would come back and then say all the things that they would have done themselves, stood there chewing gum, chatting to their mate while they're serving you, all those sorts of things. But when they're the customer, they don't like it. So it's like waking them up to actually what's going on. And consider a long-term relationship, because you will, as a company, get more out of it if you have a long-term relationship. Now, you may be thinking, well, people like Morrison's and Sainsbury's and all those have a charity of the year. For them, their main thing is keeping it fresh for their customers. So they just refresh every year. So that's their main driver of that charity relationship. And work that relationship. So somebody within your company needs to account manage it, and make sure it's somebody who really wants to do it. Because I've worked with companies where the person just doesn't, they've been volunteered, they're really not interested, they don't return my phone calls, they don't return my emails, and then the company says, this relationship doesn't work. And it's because you've got a blocker at that end. Make sure it's a win-win. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it being a win-win. And if you go to a charity and they're not keen on it being a win-win, well, then I'd say maybe go and work with somebody else. Some charities, especially charities that are, say, predominantly volunteer-run, are often uncomfortable with that being a win-win, because they feel that people, as you say, people should just do it because they're a good cause, they're a worthy cause. But there's 180,000 charities in the UK. So there's 180,000 worthy causes out there. So people have to have something that makes them choose that particular charity. And if you can have a really good relationship, so you're both benefiting from it, you know, sometimes people will want to have your database as a charity. I've had that. Now, you can't do that. You know, it's data protection. And if you're just blatantly saying, well, I want your database, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to have it. But if you want to sponsor my organisation so that you can have your logo on what I'm doing, then and maybe speak at an event, then you can do that. So it's about how you use it so that you are actually getting the benefit and so that you're both comfortable with the way it works as well. Use the charity's expertise. So somebody like Samaritans, Network Rail are using that expertise. They understand suicide, they understand depression, they understand the things to look for, how to turn people around. And lots of charities out there have some huge amounts of information and expertise around specific things, whether that's working with young people and how skilled they are and how to actually skill them up so that they can become a usable workforce, because often what people say is, I just can't get the people with the right skills. Well, go and work with a charity that actually skills young people up and tell them what you want. And then maybe they'll be able to use that within one of their programmes. Or maybe it's working with people with disabilities. Often people have difficulties with that. How do we change the way we work so that we can increase our inclusivity and diversity? Go and talk to an organisation that actually that's what they do, because they have the expertise and they can come in and train you. It's a great way to develop your staff, as I said before. If you want to you often bring new people in from outside to actually bring in new ideas and refresh. But if you get your staff to actually go and work in a charity, you can actually, even if it's just 1 day a month or 2 days a year, they will bring new information and skills back. And vice versa. What Marks and Spencers do is they actually have the staff who work in Oxfam shops go and work in Marks and Spencers and experience some of their training, but get some of the M&S staff to go and work in Oxfam. And they thought it would be a one-way traffic, that the M&S staff would be so much better trained than Oxfam. But actually they've been quite surprised and learnt a lot from the Oxfam staff, who are all volunteers. So you're both getting that benefit. Use your involvement PR, as Julie said. Don't be ashamed of it. That's a benefit. Check that they're happy with it. And if you're using photos, whether the people you're using the photos of are happy to be named. But, all those things that you would normally do anyway around PR. But it will create a buzz in your, like you said, you did your day, everybody's saying, I don't want to do gardening because I will get wet and muddy and it'll get on my nails and stuff. By the end of the day, they loved it. And it really does create that buzz, and it will create that buzz for a while, and probably people are starting to say, when are we going to do something like that again? And that's really important, that it is an organisation you can work with, because sometimes you just have a completely different culture. And if you do, walk away from it, but that's part of your due diligence initially and matching your values. When I train charities, one of the things I'm trying to get across to them is you can't just write to 200 companies and ask them for 50 quid. And I'm sure lots of you are getting those sorts of letters at the moment because charities are absolutely desperate for money. What they should be doing is going out and identifying corporates that have similar values and some sort of synergy with them, and then actually targeting those corporates to say, this is what we could give to you, this is what we think you could give to us. Your potential opportunities for you as a company: get some specialist training for your staff, have a team building day. You can develop coaching and mentoring skills, again, depending on the organisation you go into. They often have training for volunteers on coaching and mentoring. And Ernst & Young, actually as part of their learning and development, when people come and do their performance planning, they use the Prince's Trust going in and coaching young people as part of their learning and development. And that they use that in the same way as they would send somebody on a 3-day coaching course. It's actually the equivalent. So there's some really good training out there. As I mentioned before, have you got something that can help develop programs that provide the skills your company need? I was talking to a telecoms company, not Chess, a different one actually recently, and they have a lot of people on the phones. Again, quite high turnover of staff. And they say, actually, we struggle to get the right sort of people to come in with the right sort of customer service skills. Go and talk to a charity that is trying to train people with a disability or people who've been out of work for a long time or young people, and say, this is what we need, and if you can help us with this, then we can give you some work experience and at least give somebody an interview at the end of it, and if they're any good, we'll take them on. So again, you're getting that win-win. Get some interns in, using similar sort of people. It's free staff, but they're getting that experience on their CV. I mentioned potential customers before. Depending on the charity, may give you access to potential new customers. I was working with a gardening charity down in Coventry, and they're called Garden Organic, but they're not just about organic gardening, so I think there's a bit of a problem with the name there. But they have these wonderful gardens, and they have lots of visitors. So if you're somebody who's trying to get to people who are interested in gardening, potentially you can have leaflets there, you can sponsor events that they're running, and get to more clients that way. They have a magazine that goes out to 70,000 people, so you can advertise in their magazine. So look at, where am I trying to get customers? If I develop a relationship with that charity, what will they let me have access to? And it inspires your team. All the research shows that by having some sort of relationship with an NGO, or with a not-for-profit, it could be a local school, it doesn't have to be a charity, you will actually give your team that extra inspiration. So a strategic approach to CSR does reduce costs. It's proven. It will increase your income, so it does have an impact on your bottom line. It will develop and motivate your staff. You'll get positive PR from it. It will increase your reputation, and you will be able to develop new innovation if you approach it in a strategic manner. So your current CSR, can it be improved? Now, I think we've probably got about 5 minutes or so. So if anybody wants to talk about, the CSR they're doing at the moment, and if they want to discuss whether they think there's anything we could use that I've talked about, I'm happy to discuss that now, or if anybody's got any questions.